We are learning Israeli airstrikes have surged overnight in Gaza, killing dozens more. The death toll continues to rise, even with just airstrikes. So what will a ground invasion look like? When we pose that question here now to you, University of Miami professor in international relations, Constantino Pischedda. Constantino, good of you to be with us. We do appreciate it. Let's first start with, this is not your conventional war. Explain what this is going to look like, especially when we're dealing with a terrorist group here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So the initial phase of the invasion, when it takes place, if it takes place, will look in some sense somewhat similar to conventional wars, because the goal of Israel will be to take over real estate, so to speak, advancing against what we expect to be sustained resistance by Hamas forces. The difference compared to some conventional wars is that this is going to be taking place in an urban environment where inevitably there will be very large numbers of civilians present. Though, of course, this does occur and did occur in other conventional wars. The United States fought two battles for the conquest of Fallujah in Iraq in 2004, and then Iraqi forces and U.S. allies in Iraq and Syria fought against the Islamic State to try to take back Mosul and
Constantino, let me jump in here real quickly. So there are obviously over 200 hostages right now. Some are saying, you got to use great trepidation in moving forward with this, but others say, look, you're giving Hamas all the control here when they have the hostages and they're only letting them go one or two at a time. How does that change the face of this war?
Well, the presence of hostages inevitably generates concerns for additional humanitarian concerns, if you like, right on top of the hundreds of thousands of civilians that are, in a sense, trapped there. There are serious concerns about the loss of lives of people that were abducted, kidnapped by Hamas. The question of whether waiting implies giving initiative to Hamas, I'm not sure about that, in the sense that Hamas has had years of time to prepare for the ground for defense. So you can expect it to have created a range of defensive positions, to have booby-trapped many buildings, and of course, as we know, it has miles and miles of tunnel systems underground.
It becomes very, very complicated. It's almost like a whack-a-mole. They could pop up anywhere, and you just never know. Let's talk about the history of fighting terrorism. What have you seen in your studies relative to a war where you're fighting terrorists?
Hamas it sounds like it's likely to engage in initial defense that will be not that different from the one that you would expect a conventional state army to engage in at the beginning. So its fight will probably be similar to the one of an army, of a regular army, and we've seen similar type of behavior on the part of Hezbollah when Israel invaded southern Lebanon in 2006. Once Hamas is defeated at this conventional level, in the sense that once the invasion succeeds and manages to take back control of the bulk of the Gaza Strip from Hamas, then we would expect Hamas to switch to something more kind of the typical way in which insurgents and terrorist groups fight, which is guerrilla warfare, in which case then they would avoid trying to hold control of territory and rather engage in so-called hit-and-run attacks, the kind of attacks by which they try to avoid exposure to Israeli forces and then surprise them with a very rapid attack and then hide again among the population.
Constantino, thank you for your time. We do appreciate your perspective on the war and the presuming the ground war that's going to take effect here. Thank you very much, sir.